So, talking about vaginas as well, I mean, you've spoken about some health issues that are related to transition. I mean, are other parts of the transition, are they, have they changed the protocols over the years in terms of, so I remember reading years ago, maybe from the UK, that if you wanted to change, is have a sex change, as it was called, you had
Yeah.
to kind of live as the opposite gender for a year before they gave you any hormones, and it was a kind of a much slower process, whereas now you can just decide, and that's it. I mean,
Yep. You see
so
me shake my head like an old man. Sometimes I feel like an old man. I'm like, these kids, man, they're going to get themselves into, and here's the deal. You can let kids do stuff and fail. It's very important that you do that. Like, I have a kid, so I know you let the kid fail, because when the kid fails, he learns from that situation. But what's happening now in the trans space, you can't let people fail, because if you fail, there's a lot of psychological damage that's done with that failure. So what I see so what happened when I did was exactly what you just said. I had to go through a system when I transitioned. I'm the first trans guy here in Los Angeles to transition with doctors who had never even worked with trans men. So I was in a very vulnerable space of being a guinea pig, an experiment. Even my doctor called me that. It's like, I've never done this before. I don't even know what I'm doing. Can you imagine?
wow,
I mean, that's
scary.
actually, oh my God. I was like, well, that was a mantra that I had. I always said, if it doesn't work out, I'll kill myself. That was always my mantra. I don't even like to say that anymore, because we're putting this suicide thing up on this top shelf for the kids to see, that if you don't give me the medicine, I'm going to kill myself. You can give kids words. You can give kids ways to communicate. And I find that we're giving a lot of this negative space, but I did feel very suicidal, and trans people do feel suicidal. But that being said, I went through a system. I had to go to therapy for a year. I had to live as Buck. I could not exactly what you said. I had to do that before I could even take hormones. They watched me in my therapy space. So I was really handled very, very softly, as like a little baby being born, right? And so that's the reason why I really think my transition is so powerful. And I've never looked back. I've never thought I made the wrong decision. I've never had any of the things I'm seeing today, right? We're seeing what we call detransitioning. And I'm very concerned about that, because can you imagine if I decided I wasn't okay with myself right now? Look at me. It would be depressing. Do you think
the transition is coming from this kind of being able to decide so quickly? Do you believe that?
That's right. That's right. And so, I'm going to say for adults, people who are in their 20s and stuff, you go right ahead, but you are old enough to start doing your due diligence, looking at things, making sure this is the right space for you. Where an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old does not have the same mental space to say, I'm a trans person. And, they're taking parenting rights away from parents. They're now telling parents that if your child says they're trans, you have to affirm that without any pushback. I am totally against that, 100%. Kids don't know 100% who they are. And anyone who wants to have an argument with me or a dialogue about that can, because I want you to show me where any 8 or 10-year-old 100% is on track. There might be 1 out of X amount of kids who are 100% trans, but when we're saying all kids who say they're trans are trans, that's a disservice, not only to our community, but to children.
So then did you start having testosterone, or how do you take testosterone?
So then I had a doctor who's called an endocrinologist, and I found him in a book because we didn't have the internet. I found this book at the bookstore, and I called him up, and he said, kiddo, I've never worked with a woman becoming a man. I've only ever worked with men becoming women. I have no idea what I'm doing. You're more than welcome to come in, bring a note from your therapist, because we had to do that, which today they call gatekeeping, but I call it safekeeping. And then I had to bring the note in that said, my therapist said, yeah, Buck is fully a dude and needs to go with this. And then my doctor said to me, you're going to be my guinea pig. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's really the beginning of what you see here. I did not have a choice. I had to do it. And
so you started taking testosterone before having top surgery?
Yes. Yes. So he jabbed me with a tiny little bit. Again, he experimented with me. Over time, he added a little bit, and he watched me for 6 months. He watched me, and then he gave me a lesson in how to inject the testosterone myself. So now 27 years later, I inject the testosterone myself. And, and after a year and a half or 2 years on testosterone, I found a top surgeon which we call a top surgeon, who removed my breast. Same thing he said to me. I've never done this before. I brought a surgery from Belgium. We can try it out on you. It was really, I was an experiment 100%.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
I think I saw an interview that where you said you didn't like having the injection. Is it weekly?
Well, yeah, I have to do it weekly. It's not that I dislike it. It's, after 27 years, you just kind of do it, right? But I wish I didn't have to do it, because it's still a reminder on some level, right? It's just a reminder, just like people who have diabetes, or somebody who has to continue, putting needles or insulin. You just a reminder of this space that you're in. It's always like, I'm always having to, for the rest of my life, I have to inject testosterone.
Does it always have to be an injection, or is there another way is there no pills? It's actually.
Well, now for the newer generations, they're very lucky. They have things that they can implant. So they can implant a little thing that will time release the testosterone. And so they're coming up with other ways to sort of have to do this. It's hard to inject yourself. You have to really learn how to do it. It's a difficult space. Imagine if you had to inject a needle into your body every week. It's not easy.
Wow. Yeah. I had to do some injections on my belly after an operation. I just got someone else to do it. I was like, oh, I can't do it.
That's right. It's intense.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And you can't change over to that other system? Is it, or you?
I probably could, but I'm the kind of guy that says, if it's working, right,
Yeah,
don't mess with it. That's
Yeah.
right. And it's worked for me. And I have, and I just feel at this time, I've been doing it for so long, like, I just get scared. What if it's not going to work for me? What if it's going to make problems? At almost 60 years, I'm almost 60. I don't want to have to mess with stuff at this time, at this point in my life.
So what happens to your body when you start taking it? What happens to the periods, for example? Do you still have a period?
So
No one talks about this. No one talks about this.
I know, which I do. Yeah, I do, because I had a lot of health problems, right? I'm a guinea pig, and I have a lot of information for the younger generation that they could utilize, that could help them, that they would never have to do. So one of the things that happened to me was called atrophy, vaginal atrophy. And nobody knows about this. It's still a weird place that people don't talk about it. So I made a YouTube video about it, and it's been very successful. But that being said, about 15 years into my transition, I started getting cramping pain and weird pains after sex. And I'm like, what's happening? I go to gynecologists, and they'd be like, nothing's wrong with you, right? As a woman, you know what I'm talking about. They always, oh, you're fine. It's just a little cramping. Take this medicine. And I'm like, what? No, I'm having horrible cramps after sex, and it's killing me. And nobody could understand it. So one day I just cramped up, and I fell to the floor with 108-degree temperature. And I was living in Mexico, and I got rushed to the hospital. Long story short, I had vaginal atrophy, and my uterus and my cervix fused together. So, your uterus, your vaginal space is a self-cleaning oven on some level. So my uterus was holding in a bunch of stuff, and it became toxic, and it burst, and I became septic, and I almost died. And that was 100% from atrophy, which could have been stopped if they would have given me an estrogen supplement, which they didn't. So that's, as we know, the vagina works through with estrogen. And if that's what menopause is. Menopause is the reduction of estrogen. So that's why women get painful sex, and it's dry. But who knows? No one's talking about that either. So here I am, a guy with vaginal atrophy, not knowing what to do. Nobody has any information. I'm the first recorded case of vaginal atrophy from long-term use of testosterone on a female-bodied person. This is why we cannot deny our biology. I will forever be a biological woman. And when we start denying that, my medical needs are not being taken care of. I could have died. 100%. The doctor said, if you didn't come in 5 minutes earlier, you'd be dead.